Greetings, dear friend. I am Julius Nepos, a name that history may have tucked away in a dusty corner, but one that once echoed through the halls of Rome and beyond. Let us journey together through the twists and turns of my life, a tale filled with hope, intrigue, triumph, and tragedy. Today, I reveal the man behind the crown, the struggles that defined my reign, and the legacy I left behind. This is not just my story, it is a reflection on the fall of an empire and the enduring spirit of Rome. I was born into a distinguished family around 430 AD, in the province of Dalmatia, a place where the Adriatic Sea kisses the land in eternal embrace. My early life was steeped in the traditions of Rome, a city that was, even then, a shadow of its former glory. My family, part of the Roman elite, ensured that I was well versed in the classics, rhetoric, and military strategy. My father, a respected general, and my mother, a woman of wisdom and grace, were my first mentors, shaping me into the man who would one day wear the imperial purple. But as every Roman knows, destiny often takes unexpected turns. My early years were a time of relative peace and stability, yet I could not escape the whispers of Rome's decline. The city that had once been the center of the world was now struggling under the weight of invasions, internal strife, and economic woes. My education was not just in the arts of war and governance, but also in understanding the fragility of power and the importance of wisdom. It was this wisdom, combined with a deep sense of duty, that led me to the path of leadership. However, it was a path fraught with peril and uncertainty, as the very foundations of the empire began to crumble. My journey to the throne was not a simple one, nor was it solely of my choosing. The Eastern Roman Emperor Leo I saw in me a suitable candidate to govern the West, believing that my lineage and loyalty would help stabilize the region. Thus, with a mixture of honor and trepidation, I accepted the mantle of Augustus, setting the stage for the next chapter of my life. The stage was set, the actors in place, and the script of history awaited my part. But as you'll soon discover, being emperor in a dying empire was no easy task. The challenges I faced, the decisions I made, and the battles I fought would not only define my reign but also the twilight of the Western Roman Empire. As we proceed, you will learn of my ascension, the brief and tumultuous reign, my unexpected downfall, and the legacy that still lingers. Each part of my story intertwines with the fate of Rome itself, a story of endurance, hope, and an enduring spirit. So, prepare yourself for a journey through history, a journey that, while filled with sorrow and loss, is also rich with lessons and reflections. For now, let us pause and reflect on the seeds of my beginnings, the education that shaped my mind, and the family that instilled in me a sense of duty and honor. The stage is set, the curtain drawn. The tale of Julius Nepos is about to unfold, with all its drama, despair, and, yes, even moments of humor and irony. Join me as we step into the next act, where a young man from Dalmatia finds himself thrust into the heart of an empire in decline. Stay with me, dear friend, for the story has just begun, and much more awaits us in the shadows of Rome's final days. As I stood on the precipice of destiny, the path to the throne seemed as daunting as it was uncertain. The year was 474 AD, and Rome was a mere shadow of its former self. The empire, fractured and weakened, needed a leader who could restore stability. It was at this critical juncture that the Eastern Emperor, Leo I, cast his gaze westward and saw in me a glimmer of hope. With a sense of honor and duty, I accepted his summons, setting forth on a journey that would see me don the imperial purple and step into the annals of history. My ascension was not without controversy. The West already had an Emperor Glycerius, a man considered by many, including Leo I, to be a usurper. Upon my arrival in Italy, it became clear that my mission was twofold: to legitimize my rule and to bring a semblance of order to the chaos that had gripped the empire. The clash between Glycerius and me was inevitable, a battle of wills that culminated in my taking the throne. Glycerius was deposed and exiled, a necessary but painful decision that marked the beginning of my reign. As I took the throne in June 474, I could not help but wonder, was I stepping into the light of opportunity, or the darkness of inevitable decline? The crown, though coveted, was heavy with responsibility. The empire was beset on all sides by external threats and internal discord. The Visigoths, Vandals, and Ostrogoths were all vying for control, each carving out their own kingdoms from the once unified Roman territories. In the West, the very idea of a united empire was crumbling, and my position was precarious. My predecessor, Glycerius, had been a compromise candidate, placeholder in a time of uncertainty. By replacing him, I knew I would face not just external enemies but also internal dissent. Despite the challenges, I approached my new role with a resolve to restore Rome's dignity and power. My early days as emperor were spent forging alliances and making diplomatic overtures, particularly with the Visigoths. However, my decision to recognize their kingdom, centered around Toulouse, was not without its critics. It was seen by some as a concession, a sign of weakness, but I viewed it as a necessary step to stabilize the region and secure Rome's borders. But even as I worked to fortify the empire, trouble was brewing. Orestes, a former secretary and general, began to rise against me. His ambition knew no bounds, and he sought to place his young son, Romulus Augustulus, on the throne. The political intrigue that followed was both swift and ruthless. Orestes gathered support, and in August 475, I found myself betrayed and forced to flee to Dalmatia. The very people I had sought to protect turned their backs on me, a bitter pill to swallow. As I fled to Salonae, near modern-day Split, I could not help but reflect on the nature of power and the fickleness of fate. My brief tenure as emperor had been marked by struggle and strife, yet I had tried to serve with integrity. The throne I had ascended to with such hope and determination now felt like a distant memory, a fleeting moment in the turbulent sea of history. But this was not the end of my story, nor the end of Rome's. The seeds of my legacy were yet to be sown, and the final act of my life would play out in the shadow of the empire I once ruled. As we transition to the next part, consider the precarious nature of power and the harsh realities of leadership. My journey was far from over, and the story of my reign, brief though it was, would continue to resonate in the years to come. The throne may have slipped from my grasp, but the story of Julius Nepos, the last legitimate emperor of the Western Roman Empire, was still unfolding. Join me as we explore the turbulent days of my rule and the machinations that led to my eventual downfall. My time on the throne was as brief as it was tumultuous, a stormy chapter in the final days of the Western Roman Empire. As I settled into my role as emperor, the weight of the crown bore down heavily upon me. The year 474 AD marked the beginning of my rule, but the empire I inherited was already on the brink of collapse. The challenges I faced were manifold: the barbarians at our gates, the fractured politics within, and the looming specter of economic ruin. It was a time when every decision seemed to carry the weight of history, and every choice was fraught with peril. From the outset, my reign was marked by efforts to stabilize the empire. I sought to restore order and legitimacy, striving to rebuild an empire that was already crumbling. My first significant act was to recognize the independence of the Visigothic kingdom, centered around Toulouse. This decision was a pragmatic one, acknowledging the reality of the Visigoths' power and seeking to secure their allegiance. However, it was also seen by many as a sign of weakness, a capitulation to the inevitable disintegration of Roman authority. Despite the challenges, I was determined to uphold the dignity of Rome. I worked tirelessly to strengthen the empire's defenses, to negotiate alliances, and to ensure that the remnants of Roman administration continued to function. But the forces arrayed against me were formidable. The Eastern Empire, led by Leo I, offered support but was itself preoccupied with its own challenges. Meanwhile, the Western provinces were increasingly slipping out of Roman control, as local leaders and barbarian chieftains carved out their own spheres of influence. It was during this time that my machinations against Glycerius, my predecessor, began to bear bitter fruit. While I had removed him from power, I had not silenced all his supporters. Glycerius, though exiled, continued to wield influence, and it was this influence that would ultimately lead to my undoing. The patrician Orestes, a man of ambition and cunning, rose against me. Orestes had served as a high-ranking official under previous emperors, and his desire for power was boundless. He saw in my reign an opportunity to place his young son, Romulus Augustulus, on the throne, and thus secure his own position of power. The coup, when it came, was swift and devastating. Orestes, gathering support from disaffected elements within the military and the aristocracy, launched a rebellion that forced me to flee. It was a bitter moment, realizing that the empire I had sought to save was now slipping through my fingers. As I retreated to Dalmatia, to the safety of Salonae, I could only watch as Romulus Augustulus, a mere boy, was proclaimed emperor in my stead. The irony was not lost on me that little Augustus, as he was mockingly called, would go down in history as the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire, while I, the legitimate ruler, was relegated to a footnote. In Dalmatia, I continued to hold the title of emperor, recognized by the Eastern Empire and a few loyalists. But my power was nominal at best, a mere shadow of the authority I once wielded. The years that followed were marked by reflection and a deep sense of melancholy. I was an emperor without an empire, a ruler without a realm. Yet, I did not lose hope entirely. I continued to correspond with Eastern officials, hoping for a restoration that would never come. My life was one of waiting, watching as the world changed around me, the once mighty empire fading into history. As we move into the next part of my story, we will confront the final, tragic act of my life. My murder, orchestrated by those who once served Glycerius, was a betrayal that encapsulated the treacherous politics of the time. But before we arrive at that fateful day, let us ponder the fragile nature of power and the fleetingness of glory. The tale of Julius Nepos, the last legitimate emperor of the West, is one of ambition, struggle, and ultimately, downfall. Yet, even in the darkest moments, there is a light that shines through the enduring spirit of Rome and the lessons of history that continue to resonate. In the twilight of my life, the empire I had once sought to salvage lay in ruins. After my forced retreat to Dalmatia, I found myself in a strange limbo, recognized by the Eastern Roman Empire as the legitimate ruler, yet powerless to reclaim my throne. My days were spent in the city of Salonae, surrounded by loyalists and advisors who still believed in the cause of Rome. It was a small comfort, a semblance of the authority I once held. The year was 480 AD, and the end was near. The years in Dalmatia were marked by reflection and a growing sense of isolation. I remained in communication with Eastern officials, hoping against hope for a resurgence, a miracle that would see me restored to power. But Rome had moved on, and the world was changing rapidly. The Western Empire, once a beacon of civilization, was now a collection of disparate kingdoms and territories, each vying for control in the power vacuum left by Rome's decline. The dream of a united empire was slipping away, and with it, my own hopes for a return to glory. As I lingered in this uncertain state, a dark cloud gathered on the horizon. Glycerius, my deposed predecessor, had not forgotten the slight I had dealt him. Though exiled and stripped of his title, he still harbored resentment and sought revenge. It was through his machinations that my fate was ultimately sealed. Glycerius had aligned himself with a group of disaffected soldiers and officials who saw in me a threat to their own ambitions. These men, driven by greed and a desire for power, plotted my downfall with ruthless efficiency. On a fateful day in May 480 AD, I was assassinated, betrayed by those who once professed loyalty. The details of my murder remain shrouded in mystery, but the hand of Glycerius and his associates was unmistakable. It was a cruel end for a man who had once been hailed as the savior of Rome. As I lay dying, the thoughts that crossed my mind were of the empire, the lost opportunities, and the fleeting nature of power. The irony was palpable. The very man I had removed from power had orchestrated my demise, fitting end to the tangled web of intrigue that characterized my reign. In the end, my death was as much a symbol as my life. It marked the final, irrevocable end of the Western Roman Empire. With my passing, the last legitimate claim to the imperial throne in the West was extinguished. Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor, had been deposed a year earlier, and now, there was no one left to claim the title. The empire that had once ruled the known world, that had brought civilization and order, was no more. Yet, as I departed this life, I could not help but feel a sense of peace. My journey, though fraught with trials and tribulations, had been one of duty and honor. I had served the empire to the best of my abilities, even in the face of overwhelming odds. My legacy, though overshadowed by the grandeur of my predecessors, was one of resilience and determination. I had been the last Roman emperor, a title that carried both pride and sorrow. As we prepare to explore the legacy of Julius Nepos, consider the lessons of history and the enduring nature of Rome's spirit. My story is one of a final stand, a last attempt to hold back the tide of change. But even in defeat, there is honor, and in the end, the spirit of Rome lives on in the hearts and minds of those who remember. Join me in the next part as we delve into the legacy of my reign and the echoes of the Roman Empire that still resonate in the modern world. The name Julius Nepos may not be the first to come to mind when one thinks of the great emperors of Rome, yet my life and reign hold a significant place in the annals of history. As the last legitimate Western Roman emperor, I represent the final, poignant chapter of an empire that once ruled the known world. The legacy I left behind is intertwined with the very fabric of Rome's fall, a tale of ambition, betrayal, and the relentless march of time. After my assassination in 480 AD, the Western Roman Empire was truly no more. The young Romulus Augustulus, whom Orestes had placed on the throne, had already been deposed a year earlier by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. With my death, the title of emperor in the West ceased to exist, and the Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, continued alone. My life, therefore, marks the end of a long and storied era, the final curtain on Rome's dominance in the West. The legacy of my reign is complex. On one hand, my efforts to stabilize the empire and manage its relationships with the barbarian kingdoms were necessary adaptations to the realities of the time. Recognizing the independence of the Visigoths, though controversial, was an acknowledgement of the shifting power dynamics. On the other hand, my inability to prevent the fragmentation of the Western Empire is a testament to the overwhelming challenges we faced: internal strife, economic decline, and external pressures from barbarian groups. Yet, the story of Julius Nepos and the fall of the Western Roman Empire is not just a tale of defeat. It is a reflection on the resilience of human spirit and the enduring legacy of Roman civilization. Even as political power waned, the cultural and intellectual contributions of Rome continued to shape the world. The laws, architecture, and literature of Rome laid the foundations for modern Western civilization, influencing countless generations to come. In Dalmatia, where I spent my final years, the echoes of Rome can still be felt. The city of Split, near where I resided, holds remnants of Roman architecture and culture, a testament to the enduring influence of the empire. For those who seek to understand the legacy of Rome, a visit to these sites offers a glimpse into the world that once was a world of grandeur and complexity, of triumphs and tragedies. As we consider my legacy, let us also reflect on the lessons of history. The story of Rome's decline is a reminder of the impermanence of power and the importance of wisdom and foresight. It is a cautionary tale about the dangers of internal division and the necessity of adapting to changing circumstances. But it is also a story of hope, of the enduring human desire for knowledge and understanding. The spirit of Rome, the quest for justice, equity, and the pursuit of knowledge, lives on in the hearts of those who study and cherish its history. Now, as we conclude this journey through my life and times, let us turn our gaze to the future, to the lessons we can learn and the inspirations we can draw from the past. The Renaissance Spirit, a channel dedicated to exploring these very ideas, offers a platform for those who seek to understand and connect with the rich tapestry of human history. Whether it is through visiting ancient sites, collecting coins that bear the faces of emperors long gone, or simply engaging with the stories of the past, there is a wealth of knowledge and inspiration to be found. As we transition to the final part of this narrative, let us not forget the enduring lessons of Rome and the spirit of inquiry and discovery that it inspires. My story, though filled with struggle and loss, is also one of hope and resilience. Join me as we conclude with a reflection on the Renaissance spirit and the importance of embracing our shared history and heritage. As we reach the end of this tale, I, Julius Nepos, invite you to reflect on the journey we've taken together. From my birth in Dalmatia, Through my brief and turbulent reign as the last legitimate Western Roman emperor to my untimely demise, we have traversed a landscape rich with history, intrigue, and lessons that resonate to this day. My life was but a small part of the vast tapestry of Rome's legacy, yet it serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities and challenges that come with power and leadership. In the shadow of the fallen empire, the Renaissance spirit emerges, a concept that embodies the pursuit of knowledge, the appreciation of history, and the quest for justice and equity. This channel, the Renaissance Spirit, is dedicated to exploring these ideals, drawing inspiration from the past to illuminate the present and future. It is a space for those who seek to understand the intricacies of history, politics, culture, and the human experience. For those who wish to walk in the footsteps of history, the ancient sites associated with my life offer a tangible connection to the past. The city of Split, with its remnants of Roman architecture, including Diocletian's palace, provides a glimpse into the world of late antiquity. Visiting these sites is not just an exploration of physical spaces, but a journey through time, where one can feel the echoes of an empire that once stood at the center of the world. It's an experience that brings to life the stories of emperors, soldiers, citizens, and the myriad individuals who shaped Rome's history. For enthusiasts of numismatics, collecting coins from the period offers a unique way to connect with the past. Coins bearing my likeness, as well as those of other Roman emperors, serve as miniature time capsules, preserving the art, culture, and political messages of the era. Each coin tells a story, from the glory days of the empire to its eventual decline, and they provide a tangible link to the people and events that defined an era. As we conclude, let me rephrase the words of another figure from history, the Emperor Librius, who like myself was a part of Rome's final chapters. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey. The Renaissance Spirit is more than just a channel, it's a community dedicated to fostering a just, equitable, and humanitarian world. We delve into a broad spectrum of topics, from history and politics to religion, personal development, and culture, exploring the intersections of society and the arts. Our discussions often draw parallels between the ancient world and today, offering insights that are invaluable for the true modern polymath. The Renaissance was a time of rebirth and discovery, a golden age that laid the foundations for the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason. It was an era that celebrated the pursuit of knowledge, a quest to rediscover truths lost to time and to uncover new understandings. By embracing this spirit, we open ourselves to a deeper appreciation of humanity and our shared history, fostering a world where knowledge and compassion guide our actions. The Renaissance spirit is not just a philosophy but a way of living, learning, growing, and thinking. I encourage you to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share our content. If you're eager to explore and experience the richness of life and history, our channel offers a treasure trove of insights and stories. Take a moment to peruse our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what resonated with you and what topics you'd like to see covered in the future. And before you go, consider taking our quiz to see if you embody the Renaissance spirit. Live the Renaissance spirit and continue this journey of discovery and enlightenment. Thank you, dear friend, for walking with me through the corridors of history. The story of Julius Nepos may have ended, but the spirit of Rome and the pursuit of knowledge continue to inspire us all. May you carry the lessons of the past into the future, always seeking wisdom and understanding in a world full of wonder.